God, in His wisdom, gave humanity the gift of language so that we may communicate, learn, and connect with one another. Today, we explore how language is acquired through Stephen Krashen's theory. Who is Stephen Krashen? He is an American linguist known for his work in second language acquisition and the input hypothesis. Stephen proposed that language is acquired naturally when learners are exposed to understandable language input. In easy words, we can say that Krashen believed that language is acquired best through meaningful communication rather than only memorizing grammar rules. And his theory is based on 5 hypotheses that we are going to look at step by step. We have the acquisition learning hypothesis. Acquisition, it is a subconscious process similar to how children learn their first language, and it happens naturally through meaningful communication. And learning is a conscious study of grammar rules. Let's say, for example, a child learns English by hearing people speak every day. That is the acquisition. And Krashen says real fluency comes more from acquisition rather than learning rules. Let's say you're trying to learn a second language. Let's say, for example, French. When you learn French alone, let's say you study it, you learn the grammar rules, you learn everything about how to write a sentence, and consider a person who hasn't learned it. The conscious study is staying with people who speak French, communicates with people who speak French, hears them speak French every day. This other person is able to acquire the language naturally and easily rather than the person who studies the language, the grammar rules every single day. So the difference will be there. So this is the first hypothesis he developed, the acquisition and the learning hypothesis. The monitor hypothesis. This explains how learned grammar helps to us edit or correct speech. The monitor, it's a learned knowledge used to edit or correct language output. Acquisition, let's say, look at acquisition, it's natural speaking. But learning, it's checking grammar. For example, you say a sentence, then mentally correct the tense. While speaking, there are small corrections. While writing, checking the tense, spelling, and grammar. So the monitor, it acts as an editor in the learner's mind. You know the grammar rule for the past tense and correct yourself while speaking. Over reliance on the monitor can make speech slower and less natural. For example, you're studying for French, right? Then you're learning it. So every time you try to write a sentence, you'll obviously want to correct it. This slows speech, and it doesn't come naturally, so it becomes a hard one rather than acquisition. Because acquisition, you wouldn't even care about the grammar rules. You'll just speak. Then as you advance, you will understand them and they will come in naturally. So that is the monitor hypothesis, that thing that acts as a corrector inside the brain. For example, let's say I walk home. Then your mind will be like, no, I walked home. You see, that is now the hypothesis inside the mind trying to correct you. Then we have the natural order hypothesis. Language structures are acquired in a predictable order. So language learners acquire grammatical structures in a predictable sequence, not necessarily the same as they are taught. For example, simple words first, then grammar rules later, then complex structures the last. So English learners often acquire plural form before even past tenses come in. So learners do not always acquire language in the order teachers teach it. A learner may understand simple present tense before perfect tense. So the natural order hypothesis, it has a predictable order. You have to understand from simple to complex. You can't go from complex to simple. No, you have to go from what you understand better to what you will come to understand better now later. That is the natural order hypothesis. Then we have the input hypothesis. This is Krashen's most famous idea. Learners progress when they receive comprehensible input slightly above their current level. And he called this I+1, where I is the current level and +1 is the next level challenge. For example, if a learner understands simple sentences, the teacher should introduce slightly harder ones. For example, if a learner, let's say, understands the boy is running, the next step is the boy is running quickly to school. So language grows best when learners understand messages that are just a little more advanced. So, like, for you to grow, you'll have to understand. For example, you'll just sit, then you'll be like, the child has eaten so fast. You always know that the child eats fast, but the child has eaten, so that other things that are above your level, that's when we introduce many similes, and so something that is above you. So the input hypothesis, so you receive something that is in the next level, that is above what you are reading. There is the input hypothesis. Then we have the affective filter hypothesis. Emotions factors influence language acquisition. High motivation, low anxiety, and confidence creates a low effective filter, making learning easier. Stress, fear, or lack of interest raises the filter, blocking acquisition. So a fearful student may avoid speaking in class, right? So learning becomes harder. So a learner should be relaxed, should be encouraged, should be motivated in order to acquire the language. For example, you cannot tell me you want to learn another, let's say you want to learn, let's say the French, and you are not consistently, or you are not even encouraged with an you don't love that language. How can you learn a language if you don't even like the language, if you don't love the language? Even in schools, you could understand people acquired the second language when those who performed well are those who had a positive attitude towards the subject. But once you have a negative attitude towards the nini, that is now the affective filter hypothesis, there's nothing you will understand. So emotions affect language learning. So what is the importance in teaching? Teachers should use simple understandable languages to create to help learners, create a friendly environment, encourage communication, reduce fear and anxiety. And another point, like, always, if you want to learn a second language, always watch series that speak in that language. You just don't have to rely on books. That is, if you don't have somebody who speaks the same language closer to you, right? Yes. In conclusion, Krashen's theory, it teaches that language grows through input first, practice, and low anxiety. Learners acquire language best when they understand message and feel safe to communicate. That is my lesson for today. I hope you enjoy the lesson and you will subscribe for more.